Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today, what we are going to do is we are going to do a special right triangle review. Okay? You had some homework. It was a practice 7-3, a worksheet. And we're going to briefly go over the answers of the first half of it and see how you did there. And then I just want to do some review on the special right triangles. Now, this class seemed to really be on top of it. There might have been some of you that were struggling, but man, it seemed like everybody, for the most part, everybody I could get a read on really was getting this stuff. And so hopefully the beginning of that worksheet was really, really simple. Okay, so let's take a look at it. What I've done is I've just, instead of just kind of working out all of them in front of you, because there's not a whole lot of work, here are the answers for 1 through 9. And so I'd like you to check your own paper really quick. On number 1, you can see that x is 2 and y is square root of 3. Number 2, a is 4.5 or 9 halves, and b is 4.5 times the square root of 3. Number 3, d is 25 over the square root of 3. E would then be 50 over the square root of 3. For number 4, x is 8 times the square root of 2. For number 5, y is 28 divided by the square root of 2, which is the same thing as 14 times the square root of 2. Remember, we talked about how you could kind of simplify those. Number 6, 6 is probably one of the most challenging ones on the page. You actually have to take 14 divided by the square root of 3 and then double it. So that's why we get 28 divided by the square root of 3. Number 7, z is 2 because it's square root of 2 times the square root of 2, which is 2. And number 8, x is 15, half of 30. And then y is 15 times the square root of 3. And for number 9, s is 6 divided by the square root of 2, which also simplifies to 3 times the square root of 2. Okay, the rest, there were some of, well, do you round to this number or round to that number? These, I'm mostly concerned with you understanding the basic special right triangles. And so we're going to review that right now, okay? So here's a set of our special right triangles. The top 3 are 30, 60, 90, and the bottom 2 are 45, 45, 90, okay? So in these, I just want us to try to remember, if I know the short side of a 30, 60, 90, and this right here being the short side. So let's pretend for a second that that side is 2. Then I know that the hypotenuse has got to be double that. Okay, so therefore the hypotenuse would be 4. And the longer leg, this longer side right here, would have to be whatever the short leg is times the square root of 2. Remember, one of the things we said when you're going from a short side to a long side, you have to multiply, but when you go from a long side to a short side, you divide. In other words, on this one, if I said that this side was 4, and I wanted to then find the measure of this side, I'm going from long to short, so I have to divide. And the relationship between those two legs is that square root of 3 relationship, so this side would be 4 divided by the square root of 3. Now to go from this short leg to the hypotenuse, I have to multiply. I'm going from small to big, so I have to multiply. And so therefore, if that's 4 divided by the square root of 3, this would be 8 divided by the square root of 3. Remember, the shortest side and the hypotenuse have that 2-to-1 relationship. This is always half of whatever the hypotenuse is. So this is half of whatever the hypotenuse is. All right, and lastly, let's say I give you the hypotenuse, and we'll say the hypotenuse is 8. Well, then the short side has to be half of that. So it would be 4. And then the long leg is always the short leg, 4 times the square root of 3. Okay? Now, the nice thing about 45, 45, 90 triangles, there's only one magical number to remember, and that's square root of 2. You are either multiplying by square root of 2 or dividing by square root of 2, or the sides are the same length. It's that simple. So if I say that this side right here is 6, you know that this side also has to be 6 because of the same size. And then the hypotenuse, which is longer, is then just 6 times the square root of 3. Not square root of 3, sorry, square root of 2. I wrote it right here. 6 times the square root of 2. But if I were to know what that hypotenuse was, and let's say that hypotenuse is like 12, well then to go from a long side to a short side, I have to divide. And again, the relationship on these is square root of 2, so it would have to be 12 divided by the square root of 2. And then, of course, this side is the same length. So it'd be 12 divided by the square root of 2. And if you don't remember, we would simplify these by multiplying the top and bottom by that radical. Radical is another word for square root symbol. And then we'd get 12 times the square root of 2 over 2. And the 12 and the 2 reduced to 6. Woo! Weak head spot on my iPad. Would equal 6 times the square root of 2. Okay? All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to try 3 quick practice rounds. This isn't going to take long, but I need you to try your best. Each one of these is going to look just like this. You're going to have 3 30, 60, 90 triangles and 2 45, 45, 90 triangles. Okay? We're going to pause the video in between each try. And we're going to try to hold you to just a couple minutes. It shouldn't take that long. The more you know this stuff, the more it's almost like your times tables. You don't sit around and think about what 6 times 9 is. You just know 6 times 9 is 54. And these are the same way. All right? So here's the first set. Okay, notice I just kept repeating the same number. I said we're just going to make all of the unknown sides or all the sides 30, and you have to respond from that. So I need you to now figure out all the variables: X, Y, Z, W, A, B, C, D, E, and F. So go ahead and pause the video right here, and we'll go over the answers in just a couple minutes. Okay, let's talk about the answers. All right, I need a different color. Okay, so again, on this very first one, all the way to the top left, we are given the shortest side of the 30, 60, 90. So therefore, the hypotenuse is always double that. So it would have to be 60. The longer leg of the 30, 60, 90 is always the short leg's distance times the square root of 3. So this would have to be 30 times the square root of 3. All right? When we go to the next one, we're given the hypotenuse. If we're given the hypotenuse, we know that the short side is always exactly half the hypotenuse. So Z would have to be 15. Again, now W is the long leg, so that's always the short leg times the square root of 3. So it'd be 15 times the square root of 3. And the last one, these are always kind of considered like the tough or kind of weird ones, because now we're dividing, but we're dividing by the square root of 3. So because the relationship between the two legs is that square root of 3 relationship. So to get from here to here, we have to divide, so it's going to be 30 divided by the square root of 3. And if you multiply the top and bottom of by the square root of 3, you end up with 10 times the square root of 3, okay? And so that would make B one of two answers, either 60 divided by square root of 3 or 20 times the square root of 3, because it's the same answer. It's the same number. All right, and then at the bottom here, we've got these 45, 45, 90s. We know there's only one special number, and that's square root of 2. We know that these two sides are the same length, so therefore C is 30, and D, being longer, is 30 times the square root of 2. All right, to go from 30 to E, we're going from big to small, so we have to divide. So it's 30 divided by the square root of 2. You can simplify that by multiplying the top and bottom by square root of 2. You get 30 times the square root of 2 over 2, which is the same thing as 15 times the square root of 2. And then, of course, this has to be the same answer. So you can write either 30 divided by the square root of 2 or 15 times the square root of 2. All right. Hopefully, you got all 6 right. Maybe you got none right, but you got 2 more shots before we're taking a real quiz. So if you're not getting this, make sure you get this now. On your own paper, on the back of the homework, whatever. I don't need you to draw these triangles, but I need you to write your answers. So once again, I'm changing it up, but here's all of them, okay? So pause the video right here. You've got about 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll go over the answers. Okay, let's do this. Now, I'm not going to try to explain these just the exact same way, because it's the exact same problems. So I don't want it to get boring and old, but let's look at this. This is 18. Therefore, the hypotenuse is always double that. So this, of course, has to be 36. This is 18. The longer leg is that short side times the square root of 3. So this is 18 times the square root of 3. Okay? Now we have the hypotenuse. We're going back to the short leg. We always just cut it in half. So Z is 9. Once we have the short leg, to go to the longer leg, we just multiply by square root of 3. So this is 9 times the square root of 3. When we are given the longer leg, that's when we have to get to the shorter leg, we have to divide. We don't go around to the hypotenuse. We go to the shorter leg. To go shorter, we have to divide. So therefore, we divide by square root of 3. which is the same thing as we could multiply the top and bottom by square root of 3, which would actually give me 6 times the square root of 3. Okay? And then therefore b has got to be double that, so it's either going to be 36 over the square root of 3 or 12 times the square root of 3. On the bottom ones, these are both 45, 45, 90s. We know that these two sides are the same length. So therefore, c is equal to 18. And we know that the hypotenuse is always one of the sides times the square root of 2. So this will be 18 times the square root of 2. And then lastly on this one, if we're given the hypotenuse and we're going to one of the legs, we know we have to divide to go from big to small. So to go from big to small, we divide by square root of 2, and we get 18 over the square root of 2. If we multiply the top and bottom by square root of 2, we get 9 times the square root of 2. And that's what f has to be. F is either 18 divided by the square root of 2 or 9 times the square root of 2 because it's the same number. All right. Whether you got 0 right or 6 right last time, hopefully you got either at least 1 right or 6 right this time. Hopefully it made a little bit more sense to you. All right. One more practice go. Ready? Here it is. There's the numbers. Let's go ahead and pause the video. You've got a couple minutes, and then we're going to go over it. All right, here we go. For this, come on, we've got this. If the short side is 10, the hypotenuse is double. So therefore, the hypotenuse has got to be 20. If the short side is 10, the longer leg is that times the square root of 3. So we get 10 times the square root of 3. If we've got a hypotenuse of 10, we cut it in half to get the short side. So z has to be 5. And if the short side is 5, we multiply that by square root of 3 to get to the longer leg. So this is 5 times the square root of 3. If this is 10, then a is that cut in half. So therefore a has got to be 5. And if this is 5, wait a minute. Oh my goodness. Did you guys hear that? Man, am I moving too fast. Never, ever do you cut the longer leg in half to get the shorter leg. That's not the relationship. They are always a square root of 3 relationship. Okay, let's try that 3 again. A little bit better. And so therefore, I'm going from big to small. So therefore, I have to divide. So it's 10 divided by the square root of 3. Then I've got to double that to get to here. So this is 20 divided by the square root of 3. You can try to simplify it by moving the radical up and stuff, but it doesn't really still simplify very nicely. So it makes more sense to probably leave this one in that improper form. All right. And then down to the bottom with the 45, 45, 90s, we know that these two sides are the same length. So if this is 10, then this one also has to be 10. We know that the hypotenuse is whatever the side is times the square root of 2. And then for the others, we're going from big to small. So we have to divide. So to get from here to here, I've got to divide by the square root of 2. And if we want to simplify it by multiplying the top and bottom by square root of 2, we end up with 5 times the square root of 2. Okay, man, the spout of my iPad is terrible. And then, of course, f is the same thing because these two sides are always the same length. All right, so in review, with the 30, 60, 90s, you know that if you know the short side, you double it to get to the hypotenuse. If you know the short side, you multiply by square root of 3 to get to the longer leg. So therefore, if this was 100, the hypotenuse would be 200 and the longer leg would be 100 times the square root of 3. In this next one, if the hypotenuse was 100, we would cut that in half to get to the short side and it would be 50. And then we would multiply that by square root of 3 to get to the longer leg. So it would be 50 times the square root of 3. And on this third one over here, if this was 100, to get to the shorter leg, we have to divide. It would be 100 divided by the square root of 3. And to get to the hypotenuse, we double it. It would be 200 divided by the square root of 3. And if we said that this side was 100, we know these two sides are the same length. So then this side would have to be 100. And we know the hypotenuse, which is longer, so we multiply, would be 100 times the square root of 2. And on this last one, if we knew that the hypotenuse was 100, to get to here, we would have to divide. So it would be 100 divided by the square root of 2, which as you multiply the top and bottom by square root of 2, you get 50 times the square root of 2. And that or this would be the same answer here. All right. If you have any questions, you can try to ask them. You can try to get them resolved. But if you're ready, I think we're ready to take a quiz.